there was a lot of near-death experiences that were happening to me, and some really divine interventions. And I started to wonder what's going on here, and it really felt like the devil was trying to kill me, and God was keeping me alive for some reason. And so I started to question this, like, what is my purpose, and why am I here on the earth, and why is the struggle over my life, and what am I supposed to be doing?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Things You Don't Hear in Church podcast. My name is Ethan.
And my name is Derry. And guys, please, would you go subscribe, like, all those things. You can check us out all over social media. We post all the time, every week, many videos on many different platforms. So if you want extra content, like alongside this podcast and including this podcast, you check us out, Instagram, all those places, coming soon to Netflix. You don't want to miss it, so go check us out.
Yeah, we're unhinged on TikTok. We fired our managers, so we cannot be managed.
Yep.
But yeah, today we have a really awesome episode coming up. Our guest has done community development in Fiji for 25 years, has a degree in community development, and has a lot of experience just working with cross-cultural ministry and engagement. And we have a really fun, we're going to have a great time conversating, hearing stories about what God's doing in the nations. So without further ado, Ray Pittman, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, good to be here.
Is there anything in the introduction that I missed that you want to add, or you want to plug anything?
No, that was great. You guys did a great job.
No books that are secret or movies you're in you want to plug?
I do have a book called When the Sharks Come. You can find it on Amazon.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Right on. So yeah, well, why don't we get into a little bit of your story and like how you got into working in missions and what that transition was like. And then we'd love to hear just some stories that we talked about when you were on island.
Yeah.
Regarding like faith and doubt and overcoming doubt and whatnot.
Right.
I grew up in the Philippines. I was born there. My parents were missionaries with Wycliffe Bible translators. And my dad was working at a school over there for missionary kids called Faith Academy. And I lived my first 12 years of life there, and it was great. I loved the Philippines. And from there, we moved to what was called Irian Jaya in Indonesia. It's now called West Papua. And I finished up high school over there. And probably, the last thing I wanted to do after all that was to go into missions or be involved in ministry in any kind of way. I really had a passion for sports. I wanted to play sports and be a famous soccer player. So I had no desire to go into missions or ministry. And through a series of events, which are in the book, the Lord really got my attention. There was a lot of near-death experiences that were happening to me, and some really divine interventions. And I started to wonder what's going on here. And it really felt like the devil was trying to kill me, and God was keeping me alive for some reason. And so I started to question this, like, what is my purpose, and why am I here on the earth, and why is the struggle over my life, and what am I supposed to be doing? Am I supposed to be doing something more important than playing soccer or having a bigger impact in the world? And so I began, these questions, took me down this road of, well, what can I do to serve others and instead of just myself? Yeah, it probably culminated in an event where I was out spearfishing one night with some friends, and we were in an accident with the boat. I spent the night in the ocean surrounded by sharks. And, the title of the book, When the Sharks Come, comes from a fisherman friend of mine who says, when the sharks come, you really pray from the heart. And that's from, spending the night in the ocean. And yeah, you can be as tough as you want to be, but when you're in the water in the dark and sharks are circling around you, you have the sweetest prayers, and you know, you'll promise God anything. So yeah, so that's what happened to me, and I was like, if I survive this, I'll find out what you want me to do. And so yeah, it's a long story, but I survived that night and began on this journey of trying to find out why is God interested in me and what am I supposed to be doing. And I was about 15, 16 years old at the time, so I
Wow.
didn't really see myself as like the kind of quality material maybe God was looking for, and
Hmm.
maybe the least qualified for serving Him. So I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself, and that I would be any kind of be useful to Him at all, and I couldn't understand why He would be interested in somebody like me.
Hmm.
Hmm. Very interesting. And then, so you were about 15 when the sharks were circling you, and that sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't, that, I've never had anything close to that. Wow. And so then, how did you go from, okay, I want to be a professional soccer player, okay, God, I'm going to follow you, and then how did you end up, like, in Fiji?
Um, yeah, so my whole life up until then was about soccer. From you know first grade up, I trained. So I really wanted to be the David Beckham of the world, and this kind of an idea. It was all about fame and glory and everything that comes with it. And that night in the ocean, it was probably the first time. I mean, I grew up around Christianity and I grew up around people of faith. I guess I guess I'd put it like this, like you can grow up around the light but not have the light yourself.
Hmm.
And um it was my parents' faith, it was the faith of people around me, but it wasn't my own. It wasn't personal
Hmm.
until that time where I made that commitment, like, okay, I need to take this seriously and make this faith in Jesus Christ my own, instead of just sort of piggybacking on everybody else's um, faith. So, yeah, that night I made a commitment to God that, all right, if I survive this night, I'm going to take this seriously and follow the light, so to speak, in life, and change my priorities and see what God wants me to do. So I started to ask Him, for the first time, like, what can you do with me? What do you want me to do? And I met some people who were doing community development work, which was really practical. And I love working with my hands. I love, you know, solving problems. And so putting in water systems and helping people out in villages in really practical and simple ways with hydroelectricity and different things like
Hmm.
that really sparked my interest. And I was like, wow, we're able to make such a big difference for people just with really practical, tangible things. And I didn't necessarily have to be, this amazing evangelist or anything like that to help people out. The more I helped people out, the more suffering I saw, and the more my heart began to break for just what people were going through out there and nobody knew about. And
Hmm.
these villages in West Papua were so remote, and hardly anybody goes out there, hardly anybody cares about their needs. So seeing those needs and watching people die and watching people suffer and all those things, it's like, man, why aren't we doing anything about this? And how can I get involved, and how can I make a difference in these things? And so I began to just wonder about that and look into different things. And from there, I went to Youth with a Mission in Kona, Hawaii, and I did a DTS, King's Mansion. And that was really good, and just getting my life on the right path and, figuring out my faith for myself and dealing with some of my own issues. And from there, I did a school of missions and evangelism. I guess it was called the School of Frontier Missions back then. And we went to China and pioneered a work there amongst a minority people group. And that work continued on to just recently, I think. So over 30 years, that work continued, and hundreds of churches were planted, from what I understand. But that was really good as well, to get more experience in cross-cultural experience training and whatnot. A lot of miraculous stories happened. God did a lot of things. I think that time in China really made me realize, like, I'm just kind of a vessel here, that God's using. I don't necessarily, I thought that God's he's looking for people to use and for people to work through. And I don't necessarily have to be, this amazing missionary, or this idea I had of some kind of Moses type person. But then when I started looking at the Moses type person, Moses was kind of a mess himself. So it was encouraging to me that just God loves to use ordinary people to do extraordinary things. And, he's looking for obedience and willingness for someone to go do that. And I was like, yeah, Lord, send me, I'll go. And little did I know what that was going to lead to. But I ended up back in Kona, and then the Lord really strongly spoke to me to go home. My parents were in Texas at the time, so I went to Texas, and I was like, what am I doing here in Texas? I have no idea. How's this getting me closer to missions? And then from there, the Lord provided a way for me to go to university at John Brown University in Northwest Arkansas. And I got a degree in community development. There was a professor there named Ed Klotz, and he was a missionary from Ethiopia. And he really took me under his wing, and I really connected well with him, and he mentored and trained me up. He's since gone home to be with the Lord, but he was really pivotal in my life in teaching me what he knew and opening doors for me and introducing me to people. And he just did whatever he could to try to pave the way for me. Got me through school. I wasn't the greatest student, and he bent over backwards to get me through the classes and everything and the academic part. And he really saw something in me that he thought was good, and he worked really hard to help me out. And after that, during my senior year of college, I went back to West Papua on an internship, or like a summer program thing, and had some more really amazing experiences there that were really pivotal in, hooking my heart into wanting to help the poor, wanting to help people in need, and just, using community development in any way I can to improve people's lives. And this girl I liked came out for the summer too, spent the summer out there, and then we fell in love and got married eventually. And so she's my wife now, and we both had a heart for missions. And when we graduated from college, we came back to YWAM in Kona, and she did a DTS, and we were planning to do a fish farming school and then go on back to West Papua and take fish farming as a way to create a food source for people in need. And while we were in Kona, the leader of that school decided to move to Fiji, and he asked us to come along with him and help him, give him a 2-year commitment to working in Fiji, helping him set up a base and everything. So we made a 2-year commitment to that, and then we were going to go on to West Papua. And we ended up there for 22 years. Haven't been able to get out. So yeah, they made us citizens of Fiji, and we've been running community development center there for 22 years.
Wow.
Wow. I didn't know you were an actual citizen. That's pretty neat. Was it pretty easy to get a citizenship, or is that like a miraculous thing as well?
It was just changing politics. Like one day they just decided to allow people to become citizens, and I think people people were leaving Fiji, people with skills and money and whatnot, and so they were trying to encourage them to stay. So they offered citizenship to people who had been there more than 7 years,
Wow.
and we qualified, and so we went in and got our citizenship, and that made things a lot easier for us in many ways because we didn't have to deal with work visas and things like that. So we're able to kind of do whatever God's leading us to do in Fiji and not worry about anything. So
Sweet. Well, when
yeah.
you were here a couple weeks ago, you were telling a story of when you were in West Papua and working with some people there and had a really kind of like I would say like a difficult time and a really challenging specific event with praying for healing. Can we talk about that story and then talk about like overcoming like doubts and staying faithful to God in the midst of doubts?
Yeah, when I was in West Papua on that internship, I was in a village in the interior, and it's quite a remote place. You know, the people were Stone Age at the time, no access to the outside world except through the missionary and the missionary aviation that was coming in there.
Hmm.
Um, so we had a request to go in there and help them set up some good sanitation and some clean water source and things, basic things like that. So we went in to work with the village on that, and while we were there, we got to know the people, built some good relationships, and one night they came and pulled me out of bed, me and my Indonesian colleague, and they took us into the jungle, and they took us into this small little house. And because of the language barrier, I was trying to figure out what was going on. I did speak some Indonesian, which was the trade language, and so able to, translate from the tribal language to Indonesian to me understanding. And then the missionary's daughter, who was about 16 at the time, came over and helped translate what was going on a bit. But there was this young girl who had a baby, and they married them off pretty young there. And anyway, she had a small child, and the baby was quite sick. They wanted us to pray for the child, that the Lord would heal it. They said they had already been to the witch doctor, and he was unable to help. And they told us, look, you've been talking about this Jesus God and how he can do all these things and how he's more powerful than all the other gods and this and that, and you know him, and so we want you to pray for the baby, that the baby will live. And it's really important because this woman's husband has left her. It's a male child, and the boy will grow up and take care of the mother. That's kind of her retirement plan and everything. Like, no one's going to take care of her now because she's a single mom, and no one's going to want her. So it's pretty important that this child lives and grows up. So please pray to your God that the baby will be healed, and then everything will be okay. So it was about like maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, and the missionary system there, they had a radio schedule in the morning. So like around 5:30 or something, the radio came on, and then all the different stations, including the mission aviation people, would come on the radio. And I knew if I could keep the baby alive till the sun came up, I could get on the radio and call them to send a plane and evacuate this baby to a hospital and get it some help in the coastal town. So that's what I was going to try to do, is keep the baby alive for a few more hours until a plane could come and bring some medical help. So I tried to see what was wrong with the child, and it seemed that I was having trouble breathing. So I checked the airways, and then I don't know, I remembered from somewhere that steam can help open the capillaries in the lungs. I don't know how I knew that, but I said, let's, make a steam bath and make a little teepee out of a sheet, and put the mom and the baby in there, and let's see if we can get the airways open up and keep the baby alive a bit longer. And then we'll try to call a plane. So we boil some water, we get a sheet, we put the mom and the baby in there, and try to open the airways and stuff. And it seemed like it was working at first. Like the baby starts breathing a little bit deeper, and we think, okay, this could work, just a couple more hours and we can call a plane. And I noticed that people were getting a little bit like upset and fidgety and stuff. And so I asked, what's the problem? And they said, look, we called you in here to pray, not to make these teepees and stuff and whatever else you're doing. But like, we want you to pray about, we want your God to hurry up and heal this baby. So get on with it. So I was like, okay, wow. All right. So they give me the baby, and, well, my friend prayed for the baby, and then they give it to me. And so I'm holding this child, and oh man, I was like, wow, it's like an hour until sunrise. And I'm like, okay, God, like, you called us to help these people, and this is a huge need, and they've been resisting the gospel. And like, if you would heal this child, I mean, it would be a real sign to them that you're real, and we've come out here to serve you and represent you. So please, heal this child and really, show these people that you're God. And I know you love this baby, and you want it to be well. So, in the name of Jesus, heal this baby. And then when I prayed that, the baby died in my arms. And I was sort of in just total shock and disbelief. Like, I'm very sensitive to death, and I could feel the spirit leaving the body of the child. And I like, so many things were running through my mind. Like, this, number one, this is not happening. And number two, like, do I start CPR and, chest compressions, or do I pray for resurrection here of the child, or what is God doing right now? Like, this is not good. And we're visitors there in this village, and these people are warrior type people who still go out, we're killing their enemies and stuff. And I'm thinking, this is taking a bad turn here. Not to mention, I'm not going to have a lot more credibility to talk about God after this in this village if he leaves me hanging like this. So I'm trying to figure out, like, what do I do? And everything starts happening really fast. And the mother grabbed the child, and she drags it across the room, and she goes and she grabs this huge knife, and she tries to plunge it into her chest and kill herself, commit suicide. And everybody in the room just jumps on top of her. They're grabbing the knife. The baby's getting stepped on. Like, I was just complete shock. And I think I'm like 20 years old at the time, or 21 or something. And it's just complete chaos. And this knife's flying around, and the baby's flying around, and like, this woman's flying around, and like, everybody's screaming and yelling. And they tackle this lady, and they go get some vines, and they tie her up, and the body of the baby's on the floor. And it's just complete, total chaos. And so I run out of the hut, because I don't want to get stabbed with a flying knife that's, swinging around. And I go outside, and the missionary's daughter comes out, and my friend comes out. We're just like trying to process what just happened. And the missionary's daughter told us that they believe that the baby would go to the afterlife and has to go on this journey, and the mother will try to go with it to protect it on its journey to the afterlife. So she would try to kill herself to escort the child across to wherever they believe they go. And she would try until the sun came up to kill herself. And if the sun comes up and she's still alive, then she would accept her fate and stay alive. But if she could kill herself while it was still dark, she would. So I didn't understand the whole thing, but that was the gist of it. And so they had to tie her up so she couldn't kill herself. So we went back to our place we were staying, back to our hut, and listened to the women scream all night because this baby had died. And I felt pretty terrible, about, because it was me praying for the baby when it died, and I felt kind of responsible.
Of
And
course.
yeah, I was really questioning God on that one. Like, what the heck, God? Like, I leave my soccer career and I come out here and I represent you, and you're not going to show up and do what you do. Like, I was kind of like, God, if you're not with me and you're not going to like partner with me in this, then I don't want to do it. I'll go back to playing soccer and like doing my own thing. So, yeah, I was pretty upset with God. It's like confusing being angry at God because you're not sure if you're allowed to be angry at God. But at the same time, like, I was pretty upset and couldn't understand what was happening. The missionary's daughter, she was so upset by that she nearly lost her faith over it. I mean, it was just a faith rattling moment that, like, why wouldn't you heal this child if you could, why were we put in this position to test God, so to speak, maybe, and then God doesn't show up, and and I'm like, well, if God's not with me, you're not going to show up, then what am I doing out here? And so I was like, I didn't think I could do this before. Now I know I really can't do this if God's not going to be here with me. So I believe that I was a vessel for God to fill, and if he wasn't going to fill it, then I'm just a vessel, like not a whole lot to offer. So I was really like shaken by the whole thing and wondering like how, I don't know. I was like, what am I doing out here? And the next day the woman came and got me and asked if I wanted to come help bury the child, and I said sure. So I came and they just had the baby in a cardboard box, and we went into the jungle a little bit and dug a hole. I dug a hole and put the baby in it, and it just seemed very I don't know, the whole thing didn't seem right. There was no coffin, there was no graveyard, there was no cemetery. It's just like you go out behind the house and bury a human being in the dirt. And being a baby and everything, it was just so I had held the baby when it died, and then here I have it again. It's been dead for a while, and the thought crossed my mind, like, should I try to pray again or something? And then I was like, no, I'll just bury. So dug a hole and put the baby in it, and it's pretty, I don't know, for being as young as I was, pretty hard to throw dirt on a baby's face and in the jungle, and just the whole thing was really difficult. And then there was a woman with the mother, and she said, oh, I buried 5 babies around here somewhere. And I was just like, what? Like, wow. And there's just such a huge mortality rate among infants there that, people were just burying babies everywhere in the jungle back there. And I was like, this is just not right, what's going on here? So many babies are dying, and nobody seemed to care or know about it, So after I buried the baby, I was like, should we put a marker on the grave or something? And they're like, no, just leave it. It's just, you know.
Hmm.
So this man comes running through the jungle, and he comes out, and he was the brother of the woman who lost the baby, and he was from another village, and he had heard what happened, and he came running over the mountain and showed up at the funeral, well, at the grave site, and he was a Christian, he was a believer, and
Hmm.
they had the gospel in the next village, and he came over, and he asked if he could pray, and I was like, yeah, go for it, because I don't think I'll be praying for a while. And so he says it's just this amazing, beautiful prayer, and he's been a Christian, like, you know, for a year or something, and I was a Christian for most of my life, and this guy, just the sweet conversation he had with God about that moment was so humbling. God, and
Hmm.
his prayer said basically, God, you loved this child so much that you didn't want it to grow up in a life of suffering here, and you wanted it to be with you, and it's because of your love that it's in your arms today, and that it's with you, and this is the best place to be. And just thanks for letting the baby skip this life and just go straight to you. That was his attitude about it. Like, what a
Hmm.
blessing, what a blessing that not to have to grow up in this terrible place with all this suffering and sickness and death and everything, and just be able to go straight to heaven. And he was just like really grateful to God. And I was like, well, that's a interesting perspective of it, like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I wouldn't have thought about that. I thought of this as a huge loss,
Hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
he saw it as a huge gain. And it really challenged my perspective, and also really just challenged my faith, like,
Of
what,
course.
this guy's been a Christian for a year, and his faith is so strong. Like, he just doesn't question God at all. And yeah, so I mean, I'm still processing that to this day. I don't know why God did that. Like, no
Hmm.
idea what the plan was for that. But when I left that village, I felt like a pretty big failure, even though we had done what we came to do as far as water and sanitation went. We were able to put in a clean water system and a sanitation system and all that stuff. It all worked, and it was all good, and
Hmm.
it helped the people a lot. But um, I felt like a pretty big failure that for that moment, and not being able to help that baby. And the the mother came to the plane when I left, and she said to me, she grabbed onto my arm, and she said to me, like, now that you've seen us, you can't forget us, and you need to do something, like, come back here and help us, and don't forget about us. Don't go back to where you came from, and just go back to your old life. Like, we need
Hmm.
we need help. We need someone like you to come help us.
Wow.
And that was pretty humbling, because I thought, maybe I'll never do this again. Maybe I screwed up pretty bad. I don't know if I can do this anymore. But she was like, no, you've seen us, and you know us, and you need to come back and help us.
Hmm.
So that was kind of a driving force for me for many years, was to be able to come back and serve the people.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. How did you deal with, like, you obviously, like, you became a missionary after that, like, and continued on and all those things, and you said you're still wrestling with that situation exactly. What have been some of the things that have helped you over the years sort of deal with God not showing up in that instance?
Um, well, I came across a verse in Isaiah 45, verse 9, which said, woe to the man who fights with his creator. Does the pot argue with its maker? Does the clay dispute with him who forms it, saying, stop what you're doing, it's wrong? Or does the pot exclaim, how clumsy can you be? Um, woe to the baby just being born who squalls to his father and mother, why have you produced me? Can't you do anything right at all? And this verse just kind of smacked me in the face of just like, who am I to question God, right? Was I, Job says, in Job he talks about, were you there when I created the world and set the foundations in its place? Like, I'm God. Like, I
Right.
do what I want to do. Who are you? Like, I made you. Like,
Hmm.
you're somebody I made for a purpose, and who are you to question me what I'm doing?
Hmm.
And you know, God is so gentle in so many parts of the Bible, but there is every once in a while where he reminds us, look, I'm in charge. I'm
Hmm.
in control. You you're somebody I made for a purpose, and who are you to question me? And so that just kind of struck me like, yeah, I can't. Yeah, what am I? Yeah, God is God, right? Like
Hmm.
he can do what he wants. If he wants to end me, he can end me, and
Hmm.
he can do what he wants. So I just have to. It's been a challenge me to just strengthen my faith and just
Hmm.
believe he's sovereign and say, okay, yeah, he has a purpose and a plan, and he's doing what he's doing for a reason. I don't know what it is. That lady's on a journey, and I'm sure God's in it and knows the plans he has for her and also for me and everyone who is involved. And yeah, I don't know that I'll ever have an explanation in this life,
Hmm.
Hmm.
but I just believe.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, if they went through that, might have a temptation to not be a Christian or like totally stop believing in God. So it's really interesting that you're like, oh, you know what, God can do what He wants to do. But was there ever a time where you were like kind of questioning like His realness, or has it always been like pretty straightforward in your mind to believe that God exists?
Um, I think I always believe God exists because I've seen so much evidence of it
Hmm.
and personally experienced it. And I think once you have a personal experience with God, like there's no going back on that. You can't deny the experience then.
Hmm.
Um, and I've had so many personal experiences, and a lot of them are in the book. It's just like it's interesting even when I talk about the book with non-Christians and some of the stories that are involved, like they can't question or deny that that was my experience, and
Hmm.
I have had supernatural experiences with God. So he's he's been real to me in so many ways, and there's no, like, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube on that. Like, it's
Hmm.
happened and it's real. He's proved himself to me. I can't be like, okay, now I don't believe it anymore. So
Hmm.
it would I would be an idiot because it's so real, and he's obvious to me. He's obviously there, and he's obviously in control, and he's obviously
Hmm.
working. So I could try to put myself above him and say, "Oh, wait, God, what are you doing? I don't think you did this right.
Hmm.
You need to step it up and do a better job."
Hmm.
But I'm one of his creations, so how can I say that?
Right.
Hmm.
We love to put ourselves in that position though these days, especially of we have the power, we have the knowledge because we have so much like knowledge at our fingertips. We love to think we know best all the time, and it's really a humbling position to remember. Like we are just creation, and if something goes a way that we don't think it should have gone, like we're the ones to humble ourselves before we ask God to humble Himself in that
Hmm.
instance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like at least in our generation, there's this big idea of like, well, God, why did you do it this way? And refusing to follow God or not believing in God because He didn't do creation the way some people think He should have, right? And it's not often you hear someone just say, hey, God is God and you got to deal with it. Like He exists whether you like it or not, and He's good. And so I think that's maybe it could be more of what people are wrestling with is like, how is God good in the face of this? Is there anything that you could say to that? Like, how is God good in the face of suffering that happens?
How is God good in the face of suffering? Well, that's timeless question.
Mm-hmm.
um, C.S. Lewis writes a lot about that.
Yeah.
It's it's a hard one. I think everyone personally has to come to their own conclusions
Right.
on that. It's you can say little cliche things about it, but really it has to be something that sinks into the heart. And
Hmm.
I look at it as, God being a father, and now that I'm a father, my children trust me, and especially when they were little, like I would tell my kids, "Hey, we're going, come with me." And they would say, "Sure," and they'd come with me, but they didn't know where they're going. They just trust me,
Hmm.
that I'm good and that I love them and that I'm not going to take them somewhere that's bad for them. They don't know if they're going to get an ice cream or if they're going to the doctor to get an injection. They
Hmm.
just trust me and happily go along because I'm their dad and they love me and I love them. And I think that's what it comes down to. We live in a fallen, sinful world, and we're reaping the consequences of our decisions every day. And there's a lot of bad things happening in this life, and it's just part of the deal of the fall. So, until we get to the other side, it's gonna be there's gonna be a lot of terrible things. And the other day, I heard somebody say, and I thought this was so good, that God doesn't respond to need. And we see needs all around us, and we see suffering all around us. We see all this stuff, and God doesn't necessarily respond to that. We are reaping consequences in this life.
Hmm.
But God does respond to faith, and that's when we see God move in the times of faith. And I think that's the challenge to us, not to give up in despair, but to trust God and come to a place of peace in being able to say, Lord, if you intervene, that would be great. But if you don't, I'm still going to believe in you, and I'm still going to follow you, and still trust you because you're my father and you're good, and you're going to take me to a good place. And you
Mm.
know,
Yeah, that's great.
it's a humbling thing. In my youth, I was quite a confident person, and had a lot of, I felt quite invincible in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
And when I was 27 years old, I had a medical condition where my heart would start and stop.
Wow.
And I think I was getting to a place of arrogance, and it was just like God put his finger on my heart, like, look what I can do. I can turn it off. I can turn it on. I can turn it off. I can turn it on. And I was like, oh man,
Wow.
like I was, the height of my physical fitness, the height of my,
Hmm.
everything. And it's just like, God's like, I could end you. Like, I can
Hmm.
end you right now if I feel like it. Off, on,
Mm.
off, on, off, on. And I was like, okay, I get it. I get it. Um, like,
Stop, please.
you, yeah, stop. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, and it's like, you're gonna trust me. You're not gonna trust me. Like,
Hmm.
you gonna give me sovereign control or not?
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I get it. Okay, it's really a humbling experience. You think you're in control. You think you're healthy. You think you have everything you need, and it can be over in a day. And I was able to get an operation. The first operation was unsuccessful, and I was like, oh no. But the second operation was successful, and it fixed the problem. But I got the point that life is pretty fragile, and
Hmm.
it can, you're one day away from bad news in your health,
Yeah.
or what's happening to you. You could be in a car accident. There's a lot of things that can happen. And so we just have to get to this place of peace and trust with God, that, look, I trust you with my life, and you've got my days numbered. I'm here for a purpose. What do you want me to do? And let's do it. And then let's get on with it and
Hmm.
Hmm.
see you on the other side. It's I don't know. I think it's at this point of everything I've been through, it's kind of like I'm really well aware that I'm don't want to be here for myself. I'm here to serve the Lord, and whatever that
Hmm.
looks like, and however long He wants that to go, and whatever He wants me to accomplish, it's great. And
Hmm. That's beautiful.
yeah,
Hmm.
Hmm. That's
Cool.
amazing. I know we only have about 10 minutes left. But towards the end of all our shows, we like to ask our guests this question, and maybe it's what we've been talking about the last half hour, but the question is, what has been the hardest thing you've encountered as a Christian, and then how did you overcome it to stay a Christian?
Yeah.
The hardest thing I've encountered as a Christian is other Christians. And the hardest thing is staying a Christian has been other Christians.
Wow.
Unfortunately, the most opposition I've faced in life has been from Christians. Working with, unbelievers, working in remote parts of the world with all kinds of people and all kinds of dangerous situations has been pretty easy compared to dealing with the church. For me. I would take cannibals any day over
over a board of elders,
over a mega church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm not saying this to knock the church, but I think we can do better, and we need to do better, and we need to be gracious people who support one another and are okay with people on a journey and not, shooting our wounded and throwing them out the moving bus.
Yeah.
Wow. We could spend a whole hour on that alone.
And I choose to stay engaged with the church because I want to be part of the change. I want to see change. I want to see people help. When I see wounded people come in, I want to restore them. I want to help with their healing process. I want to see them, not end up bitter and leaving the church, as I could have done at any point. But I've probably been thrown out of 2 or 3 churches just for not measuring up to what they thought I should be, And it's really sad that these have been sort of clubhouses for man-made ambitions, and gotten off track in some ways.
Wow.
I think for me, like, in many cases, I felt like a square peg trying to be pounded into a round hole in some of these places. And I realized that there are some really good churches out there that are out of the box and, fit me a lot better. And so I've been able to find some of those and get in with some really great people who are challenging the status quo and who are really doing some amazing things. And that's exciting to be a part of that and be a part of the body of Christ. But, it's in many cases, it's gotten off track, and that's a huge subject in itself. But the church should really be a place where we're being encouraged and we're being trained and we're being sent out, we're being loved and learning and growing and all that. And unfortunately, it's not always like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Right on. That's like I said, we could talk for a long
I want to do
time.
another podcast on just that. I thought.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have you on in a couple of weeks to talk about the church and getting better.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, guys, thanks for watching the show. Ray, we'd love to have you on. It's been a great time. We're excited, hopefully, to have you on again. Again, guys, check out his book on Amazon, When the Sharks Come. I'm sure it's a fantastic book. I haven't read it, but I would like to soon. Ray, thanks for coming on. And everybody, have a great day.
Yeah. See you guys.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Shoots.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.